Right. As this morning, now's the time to pick the brains of three great panelists. They come with a lot of knowledge and skills. They've shared with you some of their ideas, their best practice, some of the work they're doing in the various organizations they work. Pick their brains in terms of the topics they've been raising with you, but equally, if you think there's some wider conversation you want to have, raise some questions maybe wider than their presentation. So we've a little bit ahead of schedule, I think, so we've got 15 or so minutes. But don't forget, while we're having the panel debate, members of the Govtoday team will be coming among you and actually sort of collecting your forms so you can actually enter into the prize draw. So questions, who wants to go first? Ah, excellent. Front row there. A microphone, I think. Oh. I think the lady is gazumped you at the back. But,
Hi,
yeah.
Geraldine Gallen from HM Revenue and Customs. It's a question for Colin, actually, about how you went about transferring the risk for managing leaks and detecting them, because we're in a PFI situation and I can't imagine the costs that our PFI partner would place on us if we did something similar in our estate.
Great.
Thanks.
A very clear question for you, Colin.
Yeah. Oh, it's working. Yeah. Well, Aquatrine wasn't just about water consumption; it was about the full risk transfer. So the way we decided to pay for all of this risk transfer was to pay on meters cubed of water per quarter. So a part of that was to get that measurement correct, which is very useful, as I've just said. The cost you paid for that meters cubed per water, in most cases, but not all, was higher than you would pay the statutory undertaker, because it would include all the other risk transfers for environmental risk, asset condition improvement. It wasn't just a case of taking over the estate and keeping it at that level. They have to improve it over 25 years and hand it back in a state that is robust and able to be adopted by the statutory undertakers. So there's a risk there. As I said, environmental side of things, and then performance risk as well. So some of the performance issues we needed on the estate, slightly more rapid response, for instance, than you would on the civilian estate in certain circumstances. So all of that was wrapped up in the tariff. And as I say, most of the time, the water is therefore more expensive in crude terms, or looks more expensive per metre cubed. In certain areas, though, it wasn't. And our service providers were incentivized there to reduce consumption in buildings as well. And my God, they went for it too. So it was complicated. I could spend all day talking you through our measurement arrangements, which is why you need that expertise and you need to have it on tap, to be honest, because our service providers are very, very astute at measurement arrangements. It's what they do. It's how they earn their money. And if you are not able to match them, then you might not get the results you're anticipating.
Thank you. Gentleman on the front here.
Thank you. Clive Bergertroy, Cranfield University. For Colin to start off with, you mentioned behaviours being very important. I agree with that. And education, therefore. Are you actually actively engaged in looking at how to educate the main users of your particular estate, sort of the military people who are sort of transient users and may not actually treat the buildings and so on the way you perhaps like to? And as we have two government departments on the panel at the same time, one of the things that came out of last year's conference was perhaps a lack of joined-upness across different departments. I mean, are Defence and Ministry of Justice, for example, sharing best practice, bearing in mind that you're offering accommodation in a similar way to similar sort of people, perhaps?
Thank you. While the panel just pausing to think, don't forget, get your ideas and questions ready so that when we finish this question, that some more key questions to come forward. Colin, do you want to?
Yeah, behaviours. Yeah, as I think I alluded to, we think about 30% of the opportunities are behaviours, so we are looking at that. It isn't something that DIO has taken the lead on to date across the military estate. We have left that to our users. We've given them some advice and shared the targets and had them in workshops, etc. But they've been mandating it across the estate. That's changing with the way we're reorganising ourselves. So I am now in charge of policy implementation across the MOD estate, and that's one of my key deliverables. As I said, we've been concentrating on technical interventions to date because they've been the ones that are going to reap the fastest benefit financially, but we will be moving heavily into the behaviour side, and it's certainly a specification that's in the new contract specifications that are coming out, and they're ones we're building into the existing supply chains as well. Talking about sharing best practice, Aquatrine has been actively speaking to the Ministry of Justice. We were invited along to have a chat with them about how we do water management, because we thought that the Ministry of Justice had, of all government departments, the estate that best mirrored the MOD, and maybe there were some opportunities there. I'm not sure how far we've, I think that stalled about a year ago for whatever reason. But it has been done.
Yeah, I can add something. My expertise is not in the water side of things, but certainly we do work with defence estates on all aspects of our estate. In fact, all sort of the sort of head architects and all senior people of all government departments with large estates meet informally, probably once every 6 months or so, to discuss different possibilities and different ideas and things we're doing. And we're always bouncing these ideas off each other. And if somebody comes up with an idea, we're often just picking up the phone to our opposite numbers in another department who might be relevant. And so it's a constant thing in an informal way. Obviously, there are formal relationships as well. But yeah, we're always talking to each other and we're always bouncing ideas. And that speeds things up no end. If you've got a precedent for somebody doing it, or we've got somebody else has got some figures, it really moves things on very, very fast.
I mean, on the Aquatrine side of things, it's a PFI, not a popular thing at the moment. But some of the narrow parts of the PFI where we've learned particular lessons, they could be taken forward under different contractual arrangements. It doesn't have to be PFI.
So I think Andy's feeling left out here. Any questions on BIM? Or are you going to have to go back to the office and just check where you are in terms of your 2016 target? Lady over there, thank you.
We've heard presentations talking about the benefits of refurbing rather than new build from John, but how do you think BIM actually works? You spoke very much about how new build and the process of new build fits with BIM, but how do you see it fitting in with sort of refurbishment of existing buildings rather than new build?
Answer that one, yeah. We have, I was talking about the historic estate, but also that's only a small part of the total estate. It so happens that I actually also have a responsibility for BIM in MOJ. So we are looking at that. In fact, one of the things we're doing is doing laser scanning, and so the intention is that we would be looking at all our existing buildings, whether they're historic or not, and we would then use techniques like laser scanning and see what spaces we've got, how we can fit those in. With our BIM modeling, we're designing it so that instead of having an entire building as a BIM model, we've got the elements of it. So if it's a prison, we would have a cell. We would have a services core which services those cells. We would have the beds. We would have the windows. And you can put all those elements together either to make a new building or to fit into an existing building. You work in exactly the same way. So BIM is actually a very, very good technique for working out how you can make best use of your existing asset. Because you can see what you can fit in. You've got a site, maybe it's the spaces between the buildings, maybe it's in existing spaces within buildings. Can you fit in a courtroom in this space? Can you fit in your course? How many can you do? That's exactly what we're doing. We were looking, for instance, at Durham, where I showed you the tithe barn at Durham, which we're now going to convert into an office. We looked at that for converting it into a court building. We were trying to fit in I think it's about 15 different civil courts into the same complex of building. How could we fit them into that space? Extending it, large, altering, moving. How can we fit them in? And BIM is an absolutely ideal thing for playing with those games at the early stages to see what you can fit in to an existing site, into an existing building. So it works just as well for new buildings as it does for historic buildings.
John, I know Andy's championing at the bit. He's making copious notes here. So
it's an interesting question. The process is no different whether it's a new build or a refurbishment. But one of the benefits where BIM can be applied for refurbishment projects is once you've captured the geometry of the building, and there's various techniques that you can use to do that. It can be done manually or it can be done electronically. Once you've captured that geometry, where you get true benefits, that you can model different scenarios with envelope treatment, things that you're going to do with the facade, with glazing, and you can actually understand the impacts of that very, very quickly as a desktop study, and you can link costs to that. Other benefits can be, if you're going to change the use of a building as well, you can model occupancy profiles. Some of the older buildings and the older building stock that we've got, the way that the building lag works in terms of the way that the envelope interacts between occupancy and creates a comfortable environment, and how that shields the occupants from the external elements can be modelled as well quite accurately. And that can have a huge impact on the capacity of the systems that you're installing within a building. And because again, in terms of design, we're quite risk averse as an industry. Quite rightly so in some respects as well. But especially if you're trying to convert a building to a different use, what we don't want to be doing sometimes is over-engineering the plant and all the distribution and all the infrastructure, because we can come across issues in terms of coordination between building services and structure. So BIM is a hugely powerful tool in that sector, certainly with refurbishments. You may find that the design costs may increase slightly, but I firmly believe that you'll recover that many times over in terms with the capital cost of refurbishment.
There's a good challenge there from Andy. So another question. While we're waiting the microphone to go to that person, I'm going to get the panel to start to think in the same way I asked the panel this morning to think. What's the one takeaway message you want to give the delegates here? So after we receive this question, have a think about what's the one takeaway message. Gentleman there.
Hi there. Alex Forrest from SKM Enviros. Just on that last point in relation to BIM, I'd like to pick that up in relation to whether the panel has any views on. We recently undertook some research on behalf of RAP and looked at resource efficiency and refurbishment, looking at good practice techniques, and the role of BIM came up as a result of that research through discussions with industry. And we couldn't substantiate the claims any further, but there was a view that there was a keen role for BIM in particularly driving material resource efficiency through a refurbishment project. In light of clients' targets for designing out waste or reducing waste in refurbishment, I just wonder whether you had any views on whether there's any sort of good data available to substantiate what the I guess improvements can be made in relation to material resource efficiency or embodied carbon.
There you go, Andy, for your notes.
That's another good question. The power of BIM. BIM is a tool and it's a process, and the key is the individuals that are driving the process and the way that you're using and interpreting the data. And one of the challenges that we're facing as an industry at the moment is it's about the skill base of the people that are using the software. And not a week goes by where you don't discover something new, and that may be the way that the software that's available operates, and more often than not, it perhaps doesn't operate in the manner that you expect it to. And I think it's not a behavioural thing. It's a commitment that we need to make to upskilling people, and also believing in the value of the output from BIM. And I think we've a long way to go with that at the moment, because certainly the tools are there. And your question that you pose, I can't talk about it from the refurbishment sector, but certainly new build, the timescales that we're working to are unbelievably tight. If you use the example of a power station, Battersea was built in 8 years, and new power stations are being constructed and commissioned in similar periods, but the level of complexity is huge compared to what we were doing 50 years ago. And there's huge value in that. And when we're looking at logistics of getting materials into projects, BIM's a powerful tool because it's just-in-time management of delivery of product, and the software has the capability to do that. And I believe that should be equally successful in the refurbishment sector, but it's the way that you structure the model, you structure the data within the model, and we've a long way to go to understanding that.
Right, thank you, Andy. So, starting with Colin, I'm going to ask him to just share with you what's that one thing you want the delegates to take away. And then once we've done that, I will ask for us to do the draw to see who's been the lucky winner. And thank you for staying to the end, because I know you've all probably got journeys home. And then I'll just quickly close the conference and just try and summarize. So what's the one takeaway message?
Whatever figures you've got, whatever information you have, assure it, make sure it's as accurate as you need it to be, and then use it intelligently.
John?
I think it's making best use of your assets is a fundamental aspect of sustainability. In the public sector, we build about 1% of our building stock every year. So that means the vast majority of all the buildings we're going to be using already exist. It's not about new buildings, it's about the existing stock, which could be 1 year old, it could be 200 years old.
Great. And Andy?
In terms of BIM, BIM isn't anything new, and it's not scary. It's doing what we've always done, but doing it in a different way. And as far as I'm concerned, it's putting the drawing board back into the office, and it's a collaboration tool.
Great, thank you. I hope you've had a really enjoyable conference. I know from my perspective in terms of chairing 2 of the sessions, in fact 3 of the sessions, it's been really enjoyable, it's been very educational, so hopefully you've taken something away. I think we've covered a massive amount of ground today, and I think that there's some really important reflection points in terms of what the speakers were trying to share with you about leadership, around innovation, about some of the challenges you really need to face. And the panel this afternoon, I think, have set you some new challenges. So as you go back to your offices and you talk to your colleagues, don't forget some of the challenges the panel has set you. So when I see you in 12 months' time, you can actually hopefully not just be in the audience, you can be on the stage sharing some of those experiences with your colleagues. So all it leaves me to say is have a safe journey home and hope you enjoy the conference. Thank you.